Thank you. So what I'll be presenting today is an overview of my master's thesis. So it was about 50 pages, so I'm trying to kind of bring you through like my linear progression towards the argument that I built. So largely I divided my paper into two sections. First I introduced the fit mom image, we'll see in a bit, why does she matter? And then I kind of delve into it, looking at anti-obesity discourse, more specifically looking at it in terms of the lens of citizenship and mother blame, and then in more particular Latina mother blame. And then I look at the fit mom image, which I contextualize within this larger discourse. All right, so in 2012, fitness blogger Maria King became widely known as the fit mom after posting this image on Facebook. The image went instantly viral on social media and quickly gained national media attention. King received much praise for her hard work, a sentiment often directed at her toned body. Others felt she attacked non-fit mothers and depicted unrealistic body standards for women. A year later, the photo transformed into a nationwide fitness movement for mothers on social media, aptly named No Excuse Mom, Health Starts at Home. These mothers consented to its underlying claim. Motherhood is not a legitimate, quote-unquote, excuse for fatness. As you can see, No Excuse Moms have particularly taken responsibility over the US obesity epidemic. By framing mothers as the primary health advocates for their families and their communities, NEM reifies and builds upon the mother blame propagated by anti-obesity discourse. Often this discourse treats the mother as the cause of her family's weight gain. As such, the image shames mothers away from fatness and encourages them towards fitness, a cause that extends beyond personal aesthetics and proper gender performativity. Yet, does this image promise success to all mothers? So in my master's paper, I argue that the fit mom literally and symbolically embodies neoliberal values of good biocitizenship and good motherhood, a performance that constructs Latinas as bad or dangerous biocitizens due to a conception of overflowing bodily excess. Reading the image against the backdrop of accelerating Latino obesity rates and Latina US population growth, I hope to show how this image constructs the Latina mother as deviant, for she is perceived as the source and site of this escalating racial excess. The connection between Latina discourse and the fit mom image is not literal, for King identifies as Asian American. This association, nevertheless, exemplifies a culturally informed symbolic link, since King signifies and embodies a mother of color. Further, contemporary Latino discourses provide a crucial key in understanding King's mass appeal and the image's mobilization of mother blame. So Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign, America's move to raise a healthier generation of kids, was representative of dominant anti-obesity discourse. The campaign incites an alarmist call for action by conveying obesity as a national threat that necessitates immediate and effective interventions. Even as this rhetoric marks the fat body as a culprit of the nation's suffering health, it places the responsibilities on Blacks and Latinos who have higher rates of obesity. Anti-obesity research reveals a devastating reality for poor communities of color in the US. These communities suffer from various forms of structural and institutional oppression, all of which contribute to higher incidences of obesity and other health disparities. Yet this reality is obscured by the ideology of biocitizenship. Rose and Novas argue that the strength and power of a nation depend on the biological vitality of the individual and the collective bodies that constitute it. Biocitizenship thus diminishes the role of structural factors that may contribute to health disparities. The proclaimed genetic inheritance of obesity conveyed by anti-obesity research informs conceptions of biocitizenship today, as you can see in the second quote. In addition to constituting a health panic, the US obesity epidemic is also a moral panic due to neoliberal mentality. The market incentives of neoliberalism don't stop at the level of excess, they also become embodied. That is, ourselves and bodies become viewed as self-made markets, and in order to be marketable, we must look a certain way. An obese or fat person fails to be a proper biocitizenship, since fatness represents a lack of self-discipline, lack of rationality, and low productivity in our Western society, all of which are treated as the individual's fault and are thought to deter the vitality of the US national body. Guthman claims that the political and economic contradictions of the neoliberal era become literally embodied by a double spatial fix of the body, eating and dieting. As fast food offers an outlet for food surplus and functions as a source for a cheap labor force, it becomes integral to our capitalist economy. At the same time, the weight effects of the fast food industry are resolved by prompting individuals to diet. Guthman states, quote, "Neoliberalism's fix is to create purchasable solutions to the problems that it generates. One solution is to commodify dieting as well as eating," end quote. So as neoliberalism continually produces two opposing subjectivities and respective embodiments, thinness and fatness, it pathologizes obesity and communities left with narrow options to navigate its economic-dependent spatial fix. While certain individuals have access to marketable bodies via dieting, namely white bodies, bodies of color are heavily limited in this pursuit due to structural racism. For instance, job insecurity, poverty, and incarceration disparities across race highlight an unequal economic access to offset neoliberalism's weight effects. Thus, the label of obesity functions to pathologize these communities while leading them to believe they have access to biocitizenship vis-a-vis consumption. Though the proposed solution to the obesity epidemic targets communities of color at large, these initiatives place the responsibility of reducing obesity on the family unit of those communities. The use of family, however, stands in for the mother. She is viewed as the main source of food production and consumption, as well as the fitness model for her children and partner. The mother automatically inhabits the site of anti-obesity interventions. That is, the mother is conceptualized as the nexus for the reproduction of fatness. Raising rates of Latino and Black childhood obesity then become embodied through the mother of color. As medical discourses blame fast food, television, and laziness for childhood obesity, Boero claims that these culprits implicitly stand in for the working mother. She is held responsible over the poor eating habits and general inactivity of her children. When it comes to working mothers of color, public health claims her working status and cultural differences exacerbate the unhealthy habits of her children. By serving a sample of Latino obesity research studies, I found that together they focused on Latina embodiment, motherhood, and behavior despite their collective attempts at making larger claims on Latino obesity. So just to clarify, the Latinas surveyed in these studies were Mexican American. These studies proclaim that Latinas embody a locus of fat production, a production thought to derive from either leading inactive lifestyles, cooking ethnic or quote-unquote fatty foods for their family, having skewed perceptions of health, and through their very bodies via weight gain, all of which are seen as exclusive to or as a consequence of their culture. Public health, as such, constructs Latina's racial difference as materializing through her perceived supposed predisposition to and bodily manifestations of excess. Latina mother blame and public health derives from an overwhelming cultural anxiety over the growing U.S. Latino population. Concerns over Latino immigration and U.S. demographic shifts are often highlighted as the primary incentive to combat Latino obesity. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the U.S. Latino population topped 54 million as of July 2013, representing approximately 17% of the total U.S. population. The Pew Research Center found that this increase was prompted by Latino births, not immigration. These statistics indicate that Latino reproduction is primarily responsible for the recent growth in Latino population, a large portion of which is or will be obese, according to the statistics. In the past, Latina reproduction has been vilified to support anti-immigration policy. Leo Chavez argues that anti-immigration rhetoric depicts Latina embodiment as inherently abnormal due to their alleged excessive reproduction, abundant fertility, and hypersexuality. These racist views of Latinas derive from long-established stereotypes. In U.S. popular culture, Latinas are depicted as either hypersexual or virginal women. Together, these two tropes provide a hybrid image. Latinas are viewed as hypersexual seductresses that embody the high fertility and uncontrolled reproduction of the traditional passive Latina mother. In contrast, white woman embodiment is represented as the norm, restrained, modern, and responsible. In the context of obesity epidemic, not only are Latinas perceived as reproducing uncontrollably, they are now depicted as reproducing too many fat bodies, fat children, fat partners, and fat waistlines, thereby expanding the U.S. national body in multiple ways. So seeing as the mother of color is conceived as multiply excessive and uninhibited, that is, as abnormal, what can we make of Kang? Overall, I aim to interrogate what made Kang's bodily performance of the emblem of fit motherhood. Generally, the image creates a semblance of good biocitizenship. Immediately, we see that there's no nurturing gesture from Kang to her children or vice versa. Rather, motherhood is depicted as contained from and by Kang's body. The focal point of the image is Kang's flat, toned torso in light of excessive pregnancy. The children are merely props to signify the excess of motherhood and inform Kang's bodily performance of containment. Kang's performance strictly constructs the body as a vessel, tool, and message, a recipe for good biocitizenship that must be followed in a similar fashion. First, the body must perform as a physical space through which neoliberalism's contradictory demands are resolved. Double spatial fix of eating or getting fat, and dieting or containing fatness. For women, excessive consumerism goes hand in hand with reproduction and motherhood. In other words, women's bodies are spaces through which consumer goods circulate, as well as spaces for the reproduction of future citizens, both of which constitute excessive embodiment. Second, the body must counteract the negative effects of excessiveness by not only purchasing dieting products and services, but also by contouring itself into acceptable forms of embodiment. Dieting alone is insufficient, for it cannot guarantee a visibly healthy or civilized body, at least at the level of fitness often showcased through media. The body must mold itself to be physically fit in addition to being thin. Kang's body is displayed as a tool, signifying an expansive embodiment that has been reshaped to its former contours by the body itself, an effort to manage its future trajectory. Lastly, individuals must visibly and verbally showcase this trajectory of physical transformation for others to witness, validate, and model, as Kang did by publicly displaying this image. The visible performances, as can be seen, ultimately incite individuals to look at their bodies as potential tools of bodily management, containment, and transformation that must be used and recorded in a similar way to Kang. The image's discursive construction as the body as vessel, tool, and message works most powerfully through its effective modes of engagement that dictate bodies to continually work towards an elusive yet ideal form of health. It also echoes anti-obesity rhetoric of mother blame. The thread of fat is explicitly situated most prominently on a mother's body, for she is not only judged for her own body size in light of motherhood, but also over her children's body size. Both Kang and her 3 sons appear healthy, a visual effect presumed to derive from Kang's extreme bodily discipline. Her body connotes a narrative of healthy eating and devoted exercise that extends to her children's future health. Bodily management may not only cost the quality of her current life, but most importantly, the future of her children. The concept of futurity is ever present in the image's text, which conveys a precise urgency for the achievement of fit motherhood. The listed ages 3 years, 2 years, and 8 months simulate a countdown for the change that begins in the present and the now. In light of its performance of biocitizenship, the image's play on the children's futurity conjures up the idea that the future nation's prosperity is most at stake. Without reproductive or thin citizens, the economic, political, and social status of the U.S. cannot flourish. Tomorrow is just another excuse with costly consequences for the nation at large, whose well-being is contingent upon a mother's bodily regulation. Thus, Kang embodies a literal formation of fit motherhood, wherein fitness loses its figurative meanings and instead becomes attributed to the body and its capacities. I think in the interest of time, I'll go through this next slide and then skip to the end. So, why did it become a newsworthy topic, gender trope and fitness movement? The image's cultural momentum and effective weight derived from Kang's racialized body. And borrowing from Amy Farrell, I view the fit mom phenomenon as a deracination project propelled by dominant anti-obesity discourse. The body as vessel, tool, and message inspires the effective endeavor of transformation into the status of whiteness. Farrell finds that since the 19th century, fatness served as a potent signifier of the line between the primitive and the civilized, a dichotomy filtered along lines of gender, race, and class. Fatness conveys the difference between, quote, feminine and masculine, ethnicity and whiteness, poverty and wealth, past and future, end quote. Fatness demarcating what we value negatively in society. She argues that today weight loss narratives depict individuals as crossing the symbolic borderline into the civilized by shading fatness and everything that lies on that negative side of the line. Thus, thinness is a powerful way to symbolically erase racial and gender markers of difference. Because whiteness exists as the dominant ideal embodiment, the invocation of self-transformation accomplished by the image conceives proper whiteness, which is void of fatness, as its end goal for both white and non-white bodies. However, whiteness encompasses an ideal impossible for a majority of bodies since it is contingent upon embodying thinness and fitness within a nation that thrives on excessive consumerism. In other words, the good bio-citizen must navigate the fragile threshold between consumerism, which aids the nation's prosperity, and the bodily perfection, which conveys optimal civilization. The idea of continually working towards self-change hinges on the near impossibility of successfully reaching the ideal white body, as a double spatial fix continually works to counterbalance the permanent attainment of this perfection. Whiteness is fleeting since its visible form of perfection, which is thinness or fitness, remains temporal in a consumerist culture. By virtue of race or of being non-white, bodies of color are always remain outside of the parameters of normality and proper citizenship. Yet thinness acts as a powerful way to symbolically ascend or surpass racial markers of difference. I'll just go to the end since time's up. Overall, the image models ascendance to white status in a way that compels bodies to emulate her transformation, though this transformation is inviolable for all bodies, nor is it permanent. While Kang conveys upward mobility, the image simultaneously constructs mother of color embodiment as inherently excessive, yet capable of transformation. The former conceptualized as intrinsic, while the latter contingent upon neoliberal consumerism. The possibility of successfully navigating the double spatial fix as a woman of color appears validated by Kang, though this is far from the reality of many working mothers of color in the US. To sum up, through the emergence and circulation of this image, the fitness of motherhood became less a figurative judgment of a mother's overall capacity to raise healthy children and more a literal judgment of a mother's body size as a measure of good mothering, contained motherhood being a woman's compliance with bio-citizenship. Kang's picture thrives in our culture of fat stigma, where fat or fit embodiments have more to do with biopolitics of race, gender, and class than health.